Hello.
Hello.
So I was thinking today that we have a look at this video from a dog trainer's point of view. I wanted to discuss this because obviously in your mind, you want to work with people who are training or who have assistance dogs or training to have assistance dogs. Yeah. So actually I should really start this going, Alex, who are you? What do you want?
What do you want? Tell me what you want.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Alex. I've done my dog trainer's Cert 3 dog behavior and training course, and I'm quite interested in working with dogs and especially people who suffer from PTSD and helping them create a better life with matching them up with dogs and learning how to train the dogs to help those people and get them a good relationship going. Help them on their way.
Cool.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what do you know of the public access test?
So public access test, any assistance dog or will need it. So it's a test where the dog's character behaviors are getting tested in all sort of public settings, like your shopping centers, getting tested elevators, escalators, buses, train stations. So it's not just the dog, but also the handler of being aware of their surroundings. The dog is getting tested of their characteristics. Is he easily startled? How is he going with food being dropped? Is he a scavenger? So obviously, as an assistance dog, there's certain behaviors they need to have to be able to be in public and being able to use all the public areas. Especially also their health is important. So how they're outside, like their grooming. So it's, I guess, both are getting tested, both parties, the owners and the dog and their relationship with each other.
And why?
And there's obviously more to it. So.
Oh, why? Why do we need the public access test? I mean, what's the purpose?
Well, the public access test is only for assistance dogs, and I guess it also creates or is supporting the safety and the well-being of everyone around, so the community as well as the handler and the dog. So it's not just the benefit of the handler that he is more free to take his dog and more free to, I guess, be able to access the community, but also the community have to be safe in that circumstance. So you don't want a dog who's aggressive or who's slobbering all over the table or jumps on the table or jumps on people. So I guess that's the importance on the public access test for both areas, the community, then the people around you, but also the partnership between the assistance dog and the handler.
Cool. So I came across this video, which I'm pretty confident you haven't seen.
No.
And I'd like to check how you would respond to this.
Right.
I kind of want to get your input. So you ready to give it a go?
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to share this.
Spider jumping out and surprises me, is it?
I hope not. But I don't promise anything. I mean, you're going to have to.
Okay, so we're on a plane.
Yeah. Now, I will say about this video, I'm not entirely sure if this is in America.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely sure where this is.
Right.
I don't know I don't know the airline. So I don't have any of that background information. But I personally believe that this was a disaster. But in my head, I'm like, let's not, let a good disaster go to waste. Let's use it as an educational tool, because people who have assistance dogs are going to deal with this. And I believe there's a duty of care between passing the public access test, because you have a duty of care towards other staff members and members of the public. But there's also a duty of care from the public to the assistance dog team and the staff to the assistance dog team, but also the staff to the public. So there's kind of like this little triangle thing of duty of care when it comes to an assistance dog team. When I saw this, so I would love to just, you know, have a look at it, and yeah, let's see what you think.
And just before we start, I guess it's the duty of care, but also knowing, like being aware, okay, what is someone's responsibilities and what is allowed, not allowed, isn't it? Because, I mean, duty of care is great, but if you don't know about it, then it's harder. So, yeah, let's have a look at it.
So what we'll do is, if you want to say something, you know, just raise your hand. There should be like a little reactions thingy there. So just raise your hand. I can pause the video and then we can talk, because it's like over a 4-minute video long. So it's gonna, you know, I'd rather interrupt it and we talk about a section, finish that talk, move on, kind of thing, rather than watch the whole video and then try and remember what you wanted to talk about. So so I'll keep an eye on my second screen with you on to see what you like. Oh yeah, Alex is saying, hang on. So I'll keep an eye on that. All right. So you ready to
go? Let's do it.
Here we go.
Are you I'm telling you she's a service dog. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
But I need to see some papers, because a lot of people these days are just bringing their pets on and just pretending that they're service dogs, and they're not service dogs.
I don't need to show you papers. There's no such thing as like a registration for service dogs.
Well, there should be, because then you're ruining it for people that actually need to have a service dog if you're just bringing your pet on the plane. You can easily throw a vest on any animal and claim it as a service dog.
I hear you, but that is what you think should be, but she is not just a pet. She's a life-saving
pet. Is that dog?
So I know
is that dog looking a bit nervous? Like the ears, it looks a bit like the ears are a bit back, but there's a bit of licking and sort of trying to put their body back. Yeah, it doesn't look too comfortable. And I guess, yeah. What's your observation so far?
Well, I'm not looking at the dog right now. I'm actually listening and looking at the conversation that's happening.
Yeah.
Because clearly there's, you know, there's a person on this airplane who has an assistance dog. You know, it clearly has a harness on. I don't know what it says. And this public person with the orange sweater or whatever that is, I think, is asking for proof that this dog is an assistance dog. You know, and there's now an argument kind of starting here, and obviously that's stressing out the handler. So you have this, yes, there's a bit of stress, but life's stressful anyway. I don't see the dog being distressed. This dog is kind of like sitting back and observing, you know, because if you watch this lady, she's making direct eye contact. There's lots of hand movements.
Yeah.
So if I was the dog, I would be sitting back going like, you know, what's this? So I don't necessarily see this dog being stressed, like in like, oh my soul. I see this dog sitting back going like, what's like, what's happening? So I don't know, were you paying attention only to the dog, or were you actually?
No, I sort of been trying to listen to her as well, and she mentioned that you could ruin it for the people who actually really needs an assistance dog. So it's like, well, how does she know that this person doesn't need an assistance dog?
Well, I think from a public's perspective, I think that is a valid question to ask. However, the question is, you know, is it in their authority to force it, right? Because I agree with her. You could ruin it for other dogs, you know, other dogs and people who really require an assistance dog. I think there's an assumption here about the breed, you know, or an assumption about this lady not needing an assistance dog, like if you check, but we'll go down that road in a second. But I mean, there is no registration for assistance dogs. The dog training is unregulated in Australia, which is where we're at. She says there should be a registration for service dogs, and what I would say is like who's paying for that? You know, because if there's registration, if the government gets involved, there is salaries that will have to be paid to create the system, maintain the system, regulate the system. You know, So if you want taxpayers to pay more money to do that, sure, but there's not that many assistance dogs available. So the government's not really, I don't think they'll do that. But I do think it's a fair question for a public person to go, do you have identification? Because if you provide identification, it's done.
That's right.
And then that should be it. But because this is in a setting of an aircraft, most people might not know, but you actually, and again, I don't know in America, but the airlines in Australia, you have hoops to jump through. You can't just bring an assistance dog when you book your ticket. So in Australia, with the airlines I flew with, they actually, you had to provide the paperwork, you had to provide evidence, things like that. And they would actually book you and put you behind business class. So you can see here where they're sitting it's 2 seats, where generally they'll put you at the 3-seater, and they'll book 2 seats. So one for the dog and one for the handler. And then there's maybe a person there. So depending on how full the aircraft is. So that's why I'm a bit, you actually have to provide all the evidence. You cannot put a harness on a pet dog and bring it onto the airplane, because when you're booking in your luggage and stuff, they actually have to know. And when you're coming to book in your luggage and things, they actually, most of the time, they'll actually take you through the whole process of booking in, going to the gate, going through security, boarding and all that. So for a public person to ask a person on an airplane to show identification, if you have it, just like, yeah, here it is. Or they should ask the staff.
But that possibly also changes with the new thing, what the airlines bring in, that you can bring your pet onto it, isn't it?
I don't know anything about that. There's rumors, but I don't know anything about that. So I can't speak to that.
All right, let's have a look.
All right, let's keep going.
It looks like just a dog to you, but like she's not.
Yeah, you actually look like a very healthy, normal person. So clearly you don't have any disabilities that requires this animal to be brought on the...
I think that is a pretty common thing for people to talk about, because the perception is blind people and deaf people. It's only them that need assistance dogs.
Yeah, so physical disabilities. Yeah.
Visible disabilities, yes, where there are invisible disabilities. So I think I don't have an issue with her saying that, because it's true, right? It's taking it at face value. So it can feel very threatening. It can feel very confronting for someone, because I too have invisible disabilities. And that's why you do the public access test, because part of the public access test is, do you have a disability? You have to prove that. You can't be self-diagnosed. It has to be an actual diagnosis, 1. And then 2, the dog has to have a minimum of 3 tasks that help alleviate that disability, right? So it's not about physical disabilities, especially with PTSD dogs, psychiatric issues, autism, medical conditions. Those are all invisible. So I don't blame a person like her pointing this out, because she's looking at the obvious. I think that this is where it's amazing to have staff that can support you to take that pressure off you. And for my guys, I actually have a little business card that I give them. So they just give that to people, and my contact details are on there, just to take that pressure off. Because if you're getting asked this question 10, 20 times a day when you're just trying to do life, going to the shopping center or the movie theater or something, it's quite stressful, especially if you have social anxiety. So again, I don't blame this public person. I just feel really bad for the handler.
But I also feel like she's not asking the question. She's like, you don't look like someone who needs one. So it's an assumption from her point. And
that's right.
Yeah, we do obviously have a lot of assumptions, and maybe we're a little bit different because we are working with people who have invisible disabilities. So
But I will say, if you start paying attention to the sweater lady, at her body language, because I'm autistic, and paying attention to people's body languages, I had to learn this. I had to learn the hard way and things. I really have to be open to it. Now, I'm not in this situation. Like, we're looking at it outside the frame. And you can see the handler is looking down. She's not making eye contact. She's stressed. And this lady is being confrontational. But the question for me, sitting here being nice, cool, and calm, is why are you being confrontational? So that's a question I would keep in the back of my mind as we keep watching this video. But yeah, it's stressful for everyone right now. Anything else before I?
No.
Oh, all right, let's continue on.
What's wrong with the dog?
Someone else asked.
This breed of dog is one of the #1 most aggressive dogs. They are bred to kill.
Wow.
And next to an animal, look at this. Look at this.
Well,
Service dogs don't jump on people.
No, they do when they're
No,
alerting you. They do when they're alerting you.
Pressure.
Alerting you of what?
Of probably a panic attack because of what you're doing right now.
I'm getting a panic attack watching your dog jump on
leave
me
her alone.
because it's going to lunge at me next.
Why
She's
don't
not
you
gonna
change
lunge at you.
seats?
You know,
Just
I'm going to
change
go.
seats.
I'm going to get a strike.
Okay, that's
I'm going
great.
to get a fight.
Go ahead.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, obviously not, but not knowing what a service dog can do for people. She found it was like an attack or, you know, the most dangerous. But what I see is this dog is trying to put pressure on the owner because of probably what he's been trained for, that she has obviously either panic attack or anxiety, and he's just been taught to calm. That's the way to calm her. So you can't blame the other person for not knowing. But yeah, in her eyes, she thought it was, you know, attacking, or a service dog wouldn't do that. And again, I guess it comes down to making people aware of what a service dog can do. Like, you know, in a normal, for someone to assist. So it's not just, you know, the guide dogs who guide the blinds, or, you know, people in wheelchairs, but also invisible disabilities or stress, anxiety, or a seizure. You know, I mean, dogs do that. So it's, yeah.
I think the first thing is there's obviously an assumption about the breed. And I understand that to a degree because in the past, you know, as we bred for purpose, dogs had characteristics coming through, you know, looks and grooming requirements and size and colors and that, and then that developed into breeds. But because there's a very small amount of people who actually breed for function these days, you know, military and guide dogs or whatnot. It makes it difficult because unless you are, like in Australia, there's a restricted breed list. So those dogs are not allowed in you can't breed them, you can't bring them in to Australia. So unless your dog is on that list, it doesn't matter what breed the dog is. If the dog is able to do its job, the tasks, and it's not on the restricted breeds list, it can be any breed. And this lady was first, this is the #1 most aggressive dog, which is not true, because it's clearly some sort of Malinois. The coat color, the way this coat looks a little bit, could be Malinois cross German Shepherd or a different cross. And you're going to see a lot of Malinois, or you should see a lot of Malinois in the last couple of times with movies like Dog. There's a few other movies where, you know, it's the other one, John Wick 2 or something. So there's this perception of, oh, these dogs are bred to kill, but that's not true. These dogs are actually not bred to kill. They're actually bred to grab and hold, and then it can be trained. But dog like that, genetically speaking, won't pass the public access test. That's where we look at temperament. So that's the first thing, is we obviously have someone with an assumption of breed, which, oops, I think we lost our young lady. So let me see if I can get her back. Oops, daisy. We lost you. See if we can get her back here. There we go. Now I can now join meeting. Hello, welcome back.
I don't know what happened.
That's okay. So, you know, there's an assumption of the breed. As I said, the second thing is, again, is what you were talking about. We've already spoken about invisible disabilities, but it is about the tasks. So I help train cabin crews, so the future cabin crews at TAFE in Jandakot here in Perth. And I actually tell them, when you're going to be working with someone who has an assistance dog on your airplane, the question's not about the dog, it's about the handler. So are there any tasks the dog is trained that I can assist with? Like, is the dog going to alert me? And when the dog alerts me, what is it alerting me to? So I agree with you, like deep pressure therapy is for a lot of people with anxiety, PTSD, and things like that. It's also another thing is a grounding technique. Most psychologists, when they use anchoring and grounding with people who are starting to get triggered, is to activate the senses in the present moment. So here she's touching the dog, she can smell the dog, she's looking at the dog, she can even try and listen to it, you know, it's breathing, whatever. So all these senses are trying to help pull that person into the moment as an anchoring tool. So saying that service dogs or assistance dogs aren't supposed to do that is not true. Assistance dogs aren't supposed to jump on strangers, but if that is a task that the dog does, then that is not true. And we know, as diverse as the disabilities are, that can be how diverse the tasks are to a degree. So, yeah. And then obviously she's like, I'm going to go get the flight attendant, which I think is a very smart thing to do, because neither of these people or the public have any authority in this setting. So you need to go get someone with authority, if that makes sense.
And I guess the question is also, has she been made aware that there is a dog next to her in the seats? Or, you know, which we don't know. We can't see that.
I don't think so, because it's not like the airline's going to tell you. You'll find out when you get onto the plane. And that's why here in Australia, when they book 2 seats, so I often will put myself, so I'll often sit in the middle seat. So my dog's on the right side away from the person. It can be vice versa. But the airline's not going to let you know. You'll find out when you get there. And then it's your job to communicate to the appropriate people. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Okay.
I think there's way too much admin involved if you've had to, do that. Anything else? Do we move ahead?
Yeah, move on.
Hey, the dog's not bothering any of us.
I know.
Yeah.
You're not sitting next to him.
Hello.
She has this dog that's clearly not a service dog. As you can see, it's
She's a
jumped
service
on
dog.
her.
What do you mean clearly not?
It's jumped out of the floor.
This is how she alerts me. This is what they do. Like, I don't understand why this is a problem. I'm sorry that you're afraid.
I've never seen this in my life.
Good. That means you haven't seen someone about to have a seizure. That's great.
First of all, when we checking everything, it's definitely a service dog, and we make sure of that.
I watched on Dateline that people be bringing in different animals.
Okay, but why don't you think
They
her
bring
dog
in-
is a service
Looks
dog?
like she's having
Yeah, she's having a moment.
Why are you
She's
upsetting
alerting
her?
her.
You're upsetting her so much right now. That's why
I'm
the
getting
dog is-
upset and having a panic
don't you
attack,
change
and
seats?
I don't have a dog jumping on me to alert
It's
me.
okay, ma'am. You're okay.
Calm down. This is my job. I understand where all
now
this
I'm
is
okay.
going.
She's on the floor. You can take your seat. And
I
this is not.
don't want to sit there. I can't sit.
I
next
don't-
to her.
okay,
I've had a
change.
history of those dogs attacking me.
All right.
Well, the dog's not being a problem, but right now
Yeah.
you're being a
Jumped
bitch.
on her.
So
Okay, so
There we go. So she's been attacked.
yes.
And yeah. And it's interesting. Oh, I saw on Dateline XYZ. Okay. That probably is true. And I'm sure that will happen in Australia as well when this comes into fruition. But yes, it's it's obviously now a bit more clear that she has been attacked. She had bad experience with a dog. To sit next to a dog who jumps on the
Yep.
owner out of
Yep.
no reason.
So
Yeah, understand that.
she's having an emotional response, right? And people, so the first thing I want to say is I do appreciate that the public members are trying to advocate for the assistance dog team, which is really nice, trying to alleviate some pressure, but they're actually making it worse at the moment. No one is listening to
the language they're using.
the lady in the sweater. So she's afraid of this dog. Now, she obviously didn't say that before. So at first it looked like she was kind of attacking the assistance dog team and making accusations that she has no evidence for, which often happens when we're triggered in fight or flight and freeze, right? So there's obviously a fear from her. No matter how many tests you show to this person, this dog has been bomb-proof. It's not a rational thing. So, you know, the guy earlier said this dog's not bothering any of us. Well, of course not, because one, you're not afraid of the dog. Two, you're sitting in front of the dog. The dog doesn't have access to you. So that's fine. It's fair. It's reasonable. And this is why I think, and you can hear, even when the flight attendant says, well, we check everything, she's like, no. She's trying to throw evidence out there because she's scared.
Yeah.
And this is where it's so important for staff members to be trained up on what to do. Okay, because you have one person who probably, I think, has obviously had the evidence. That's why they were allowed on there to have that dog. And you have someone who's upset for some reason. So again, we're not there. We're not emotionally involved. We're not educated. You know, we're not ignorant. We're over here reacting to this video, but hence why I want to use that. So it'll be interesting to see how the staff member deals with it. So yeah, it's fantastic when you have people advocating, but again, there's a duty of care towards the public as well, not just the assistance dog team.
Yeah. So I know what I would probably do as the staff member, but that's it.
Well, I mean, it's quite a serious thing when you've been attacked by a dog, regardless of the breed and size and age. But there is a genuine fear here, and she's responding with aggression to that. So she's fighting now. So yeah. All right, shall we finish the last minute or so?
Let's do it.
I don't understand.
How do I not know it's gonna lunge over?
Yeah, you're being-
dog on the plane.
It just jumped on her
and it's
head.
you.
The dog is not the problem.
Actually have.
Okay, listen.
A panic attack is that's so rude.
Yeah.
That's so
So
rude.
rude.
To touch me.
No.
I want to know what medical
Yeah.
problem do you have?
Okay,
that
listen. Now you
requires
either
this?
calm
shouldn't
down or
ask
not
that.
enough
No.
bills to take
You
a
know
flight.
what? No, I paid for this seat
Listen.
to feel safe. I do not feel safe.
In a
So I just want to point out here again, you know, she's saying she's not feeling safe, people not listening. But watch the dog's temperament. And I want to say this is absolutely beautiful with this dog. If it was true that these dogs were trained to attack, and I have worked with personal protection dogs, I've worked with crowd control dogs, which is two very different things. Looking at the genetic, a crowd control dog, that dog has to be so easily stimulated. Like that dog needs to, the moment there's an escalation in behavior, that dog needs to just bite, right? Whoever can get close to it bites. A personal protection dog is something different. They can't respond to anything. They really need to discern the difference between a threat and just activity. And an assistance dog is not trained to protect you. That is the big thing. Your assistance dog is not made to attack other people. And if this dog's genetics was that, like, oh, they're trained to kill, whatever, this dog would have bitten this lady long ago. But just look at, and the dog's doing actually quite well. Yes, it's a bit stressed because it's a stressful situation and it's watching, but it's laying down, which is quite a vulnerable position because it can't go anywhere, right? This dog is stuck. This everything around it is being escalated, right? Movement and voices. And this dog is beautifully just hanging back, doing its job, not taking any control. And that is one of the things that people have to understand. It comes to genetics and temperament. There's only so much training you can do for a dog to be chill enough to cope with a situation like this. And that's why we say assistance dogs are tools. Assistance dog is there for a purpose. They have a job to do. So we have to, part of the public access test is that person has to maintain this dog's physical health, mental health, have things to do to decompress with this dog, because this job is very stressful, as you can see.
Yes.
Right. Anything else from your side?
No.
You're not going to be able to take a flight.
Okay, so you can have a panic attack, but I have to sit here with my life being threatened by this killing dog? Are you fucking kidding me?
It's okay.
Wrong.
Hold up. This is getting out of control. Either you come over here and have a seat, or you're not going to be able to fly no more. And I mean that. I will
I'm
make
not sitting down next to the
You
killer
cannot
dog.
move. Listen, this is how we're going to solve this. Sit down,
I
be
don't
quiet,
want to
and
be
take a
near
flight.
that
Ma'am.
dog. Just go the way
Ah.
back.
Get her off the plane.
You know
We don't want to sit.
I paid for my seat. I'm not leaving
So you're
the
not,
plane.
so you're not okay to take that
Fine.
seat.
You know what? I'll just take this
Audio.
one, okay?
Thank you. Sit down.
No,
I hope that dog kills you.
Oh my God.
Oh.
That's the
That
dog literally saves me and has on a regular basis.
So
Wow.
that is a big issue. Again, she keeps saying to people she feels unsafe. She obviously has an emotional reaction. So the flight attendant got a little bit, overwhelmed there. And telling someone that
Making her,
you never fly
making
again
her
is
sit
not a
down.
good thing. That's not her job to say. And to separate them is actually a really good choice. The other guy asked, "What's wrong with you?" Well, pay attention. She's scared.
Yeah, she's been saying it. And like obviously the other lady offered the seat. I don't think the flight attendant finished. Sorry. Got a bit of demanding dog here.
So
The flight attendant demanding that she sits on her paid seat is not right, because if you're afraid, and she has the right to be on the plane too.
Yes.
So that lady who got up and offered her seat, very good choice. And I'll probably, if I was the staff member, I would have asked the public, because they're so involved in this whole situation.
Yeah.
Asked, okay, is there anyone who would offer their seat to swap over? And then would have left it with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're mitigating the circumstances, because what if this person was highly allergic to the dog? Well, then, you need space from the dog.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely beautifully done from this person who offered their seat. There's now a bit of a barrier. There'll be a barrier between this lady who's scared. But I think that lady will be very stressed for the rest of the flight, both of them.
Yeah.
But the assistance dog can help the other like the handler, regulate and calm down and whatnot. But that person is going to feel so bad, and is going to have such a negative attitude towards assistance dogs, because her rights were violated when she said, I feel unsafe. And honestly, I think this is where it was an amazing opportunity for the staff member to take charge. But you can't blame them either, because you don't really know what training they've had too. But this is why we use this as a tool. Anything else?
I guess her last comment was like, well, I hope the dog kills you. And it's like, geez. I mean, yes, she is stressed, but that was a bit hurtful, bit under the.
She's lashing out now.
Yeah.
She's lashing out. There's no rational thought at all for what she's saying. I bet if she was cool and calm and quiet and watched this video, she'd be like, "Oh, I'm so ashamed."
Yeah.
Unless this traumatized her, then she will always feel justified for her actions.
Yeah.
Because she felt unsafe, and that's a perceived threat, right? It's a perceived threat, and I can say that because the dog is not being a threat to her, but in her head, the dog is.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse because she's not getting support.
Yeah.
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 All right. So we're going to watch this last little bit, and I want you to pay attention to the dog, and let's see if you pick up on this one thing that happened. All right.
That's so mean. That's so
I don't
mean.
have to tell you what I have as a disability to fly with my
You
medical
are a
device.
healthy person.
Yeah.
You clearly don't even need
Well,
the
I'm
dog.
healthier than you.
So what did you notice there? I'm not talking
Well, I
about
noticed this lady has touched the dog straight away without actually asking for permission.
Correct.
Hang on
That's
a
it.
sec, lady. But again, it's probably not. She doesn't know. She thought, oh, there's a dog. You know, so it's trying to
here's-
probably calm the dog or whatever, or calm herself. I don't know.
So this is
But
the
yes.
thing. You shouldn't be touching a dog. The dog's doing a work. But people will do that because they're not thinking, they're doing it subconsciously, or they're doing it selfishly, or they mean well, whatever the case may be. Temperament comes into play here. If you have a dog that can be very aloof to the public but not threatened, that is a really good dog to have, which is what this dog just did.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of stress, like, oh, you're touching me now. But it's like, well, I'm not going to engage further. I'm going to disconnect from this person. And I want to point that out because that's why there's such a high fail rate when, let's say, people use Labradors, for example, to train, because most Labradors are not aloof to people. They're like, oh, touching me, give me some attention. And that's why some dogs fail the test, not because they're aggressive, but because they're over boisterous and friendly.
Yeah.
So that dog, again, did amazing. That dog needs a gold star.
Yes.
And obviously this person with the handler's in fight flight now. So there's going to be there'll be a full-on fight there if nothing gets intervened. So the last 10 minutes, they just keep back and forthing, and then it ends abruptly. We don't really know how it was resolved, if it was resolved. So now they're chucking back and forth, insults, which.
Okay. Yeah. No.
So I think it's a really good little video about some of the stuff that we mentioned.
Yeah.
So I am sorry for both the ladies who went through that, and unfortunately there was more fuel thrown on the fire than actually trying to resolve and trying to respect the rights of the public person, respecting the rights of the assistance dog, because they earned that. The public did nice in trying to advocate, but they made it worse. That lady who offered his seat did actually fantastic. The dog was the superstar. Dog was the superstar in this video.
Yeah. Yes. Done his job. Being quiet. Sorry. Finish. Cool.
Yeah, so I don't know, anything else you want to add to that?
No, it was definitely interesting, and I guess, as I said, it comes down to educating the community as well, and that yes, not every disability is visible, and but again, putting pressure on someone who's afraid to sit next to a dog is not fair either.
No.
So it's, there has to be definitely, community has to feel safe, dog has to be trained. And that's why there's the pet, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I will say there is the Disability Discrimination Act, 1992, here in Australia, which is a federal law. So that law is above. If there's an inconsistency between a state law and this law, then the federal law, from my understanding, trumps that. And you can actually find information if you go Disability Discrimination Act 1992. If you go all the way down to 54A, because it's a massive document, you'll find the exact things it talks about specifically about assistance dogs. And it actually gives you the information about, it's unlawful to discriminate against a person with a disability. So if you were very legalistic, that's what happened with that person. So the lady in the sweater was discriminating against a person with a disability because she can't see the disability. So that's an issue. Obviously, I'm not a judge or a lawyer, so don't quote me on this. In section 9.2, it actually says how they classify a dog. So they say here, section 9.2 of the DDA Act 1992 identifies an assistance animal as, and then it says for the purpose of this act. An assistance animal is a dog or other animal. So I don't know what other animal, I don't know if it works for lions and stuff. So, accredited under a law of a state or territory that provides for the accreditation of an animal trained to assist a person with a disability to alleviate the effect of the disability. So, or accredited by an animal training organization prescribed by the regulations for the purpose of, being trained to assist a person with a disability to alleviate the effect of the disability and to meet the standards of hygiene and behavior that are appropriate for an animal in public places. So that is what the PATS is there for. The problem is there are so few and far between assistance animals compared to the normal person. There is no registration or anything like that you can access. Like if I was looking, if like the police looking for someone's driver's license, right? So you don't have that. The dog training industry itself is unregulated. We're not like lawyers. We're not like doctors that have a panel. And there's many different reasons for that. I'm not going to get into it, but you can actually look it up and go and find out. So here's something that you might not know. So the part that does not render it unlawful for a person to request the person with a disability to present evidence that the animal is an assistance dog or the animal is trained to meet the standards of hygiene and behavior that are appropriate for an animal in public place. So it's not unlawful for a person to ask you for evidence, right? And that is where, if you're training with an organization, you have a identification card. If you're training the dog yourself, you have to produce a letter that says you are disabled and you need a dog. It doesn't have to have details. And then you must have a way to prove that your dog meets the standards of the public access test. So it is not unlawful for a person to ask you whether they're a staff member or a public person.
Yeah.
It's not unlawful for the person to say you need to have that animal under control, which in this case, you could see for her perception, she was like, well, the dog's jumping on you and that's not right. That can be a bit, so it's a bit, what do you do?
Yeah.
But it is interesting that, yeah.
But in that case, it didn't matter what she said.
No,
because this lady
right.
was so in her mind and scared that it didn't matter. Because
right.
she said this is calming her down, and this is, when she had a seizure. So, but it didn't matter.
The only time you can say to someone, you can't have your assistance dog here, is if you suspect the animal has an infectious disease, and you're doing it to protect public health of the animal or the safety of the public. And this is where it gets a bit iffy, because no one picked up that the lady with the sweater was actually fearful. So I'm very sorry that happened. Ooh.
Yeah.
So
cool. Good video.
Yeah, it's an absolutely good video to look at. And again, like I said, I don't know where this happened, but you got to understand.
It seems like American.
I think so, yeah.
From the outfit of the air hostess.
Also, if you look, it seems like she was in row 64, which is quite far down the airplane. So she's going to have to pass all the people with baggage and stuff like that, which is what I love about our airlines. And I think it's Virgin that they put you just behind business class. So you don't have to go through, that very thin lane.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
thank you,
Alex, and helping me react to this video, because
no worries.
it was quite intense and I think it was a disaster.
Yes, but good to have to talk about it and educate others.
All right. Well, hopefully talk to you soon and have a great day.
Will do. You too. See you then.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.